Good afternoon. Hope you're having a great week. It is Wednesday, March 19th, 2:20 p.m. Central no, daylight. Central daylight time. Well, I think we just switched from standard to daylight this past Sunday. I wish they would get rid of daylight savings time. But yeah, 2:20 p.m. Central daylight time, local time here in Oklahoma City. We're going to try to do a load board video. We're going to talk about a couple of things really quick. Um, Compliance events. This big red box right here. Landstar still has not updated my DOT inspection. I got my DOT inspection done Saturday and they still haven't updated it. I called Landstar an hour and a half ago, approximately. I had to wait on hold for a half hour to reach somebody in equipment compliance, and they said that they took me off hold. They haven't processed my paperwork yet, but she looked into the system and saw that my paperwork was there. And she said that she was going to go ahead and take me off hold while they processed my paperwork. But that still hasn't happened. I'm still listed on hold right here, which means I cannot book a load. If I tried to book a load right now, the agent would not know that I'm on hold until they tried to assign the load to me. And whenever they try to assign the load to my truck, it would say this truck's on hold. And they would just stop, doing business with me at that point and tell me to, talk with Landstar. They won't hold the load for you or anything like that. Um, so it's pointless to try to book a load right now. The other thing I want to talk about before we look at the load board, we're going to look in this search trucks. So disclaimer, because Landstar is a publicly traded company, I am not a Landstar employee. I do not have access to any insider information with Landstar. I am a small business owner that partners with Landstar. Landstar is a business partner of mine. We have a contract. We do business together. What we're looking at right now is the number of active trucks at Landstar. This is not the total number of trucks leased to Landstar. This is just the number of active trucks. I'm not currently active. I'm out of service. I'm on hold because they haven't updated my paperwork yet. As soon as they update my paperwork, I'll be taken off hold and this number will go up by one. This gives us a rough idea of how many trucks are leased to Landstar. Whenever I first leased on during the freight boom back in 2021, this number was well over 13,000. I think it was up close to 14,000 active trucks. And we're at almost half that now. Landstar's fleet has shrunk by almost half. It's probably closer to about like 40% if I had to guess. And it's dropped by about 500 trucks within the last 4 or 5 months. Since around November, December, it was around 8,200. Now we're down to 7,700 in March. So Landstar's fleet size continues shrinking. Is this Landstar getting rid of people? No, it's not. I've talked with Landstar about this and asked them like what's with the fleet size shrinking. And they told me that it's people terminating their contracts. So it's trucking companies like me that are going out of business, or because the rates are bad, they're terminating their lease with Landstar and they're leasing on with somebody else because they think the rates are going to be better somewhere else. Or maybe they're shutting down their business as an owner operator, and they're going back to being a company driver somewhere else. So there's just a lot of movement in the industry, and there's a lot of people going out of business, and there's a lot of owner operators that are becoming company drivers. That's one of the things that I think a lot of people don't understand about this industry is you hear about all these trucking companies going out of business, and does that mean that those trucks are getting off the road? No, it doesn't. When a trucking company goes out of business, that's usually an owner operator going out of business. And does that mean that they're leaving the trucking industry? No. they're almost always becoming a company driver. If an owner operator goes out of business, they don't go get a job at McDonald's, they go get another trucking job. They're no longer an owner operator, they go and become a company driver again. So we're not actually losing freight capacity. It's just people shifting around from place to place. Like when the freight market starts booming, you see a lot of company drivers becoming owner operators. When the freight market goes down, you see a lot of owner operators becoming company drivers, just moving, a shell game, just going from one place to another. So, anyway, now let's start looking at the load board. More disclaimers. I have to say all this stuff in every video because, like, this may be the only video of mine you've ever watched. So if you see a phone number, don't call it. This is a private load board. If you call these numbers, they're going to assume that you're leased to Landstar. And if you try to book the load, they're going to be like, "What's your truck number?" And you're going to give them a truck number. They're going to be like, "That's yeah, I'm not pulling up anything with that." Also, these rates that you see on here, these are the full rates. This is what the Landstar agent negotiated the rate to. I get 65% of the line haul plus 100% of the fuel surcharge, which comes out to somewhere around 70% on average. So I get approximately 70% of whatever rates you see on here. I don't get this $2.99 a mile. On a $3 a mile load, I get about $2.10 a mile. That's my gross, that's my percentage out of what the load pays. The remaining 90 cents per mile is split between Landstar and the agent. So let's look through the loads here. First of all, the freight market sucks. It still sucks. And I don't know what the freight market's doing. I was optimistic that the freight market was going to go up by this summer, but now I'm, not so much with this tit for tat trade thing that's happening right now. I was not expecting countries to be so stupid as to retaliate against us and start a trade war. What we're doing with the tariffs is trying to correct trade imbalances. And the problem is that these countries like Canada and China are dependent on us. We can't have even trade with them. Like, it'll destroy their country. Trudeau, the former prime minister of Canada, I think he's stepped down and been replaced. He might not officially be replaced yet, but he's being replaced. Trudeau made the comment when Trump said he was going to put a 25% tariff on Canada. Trudeau said that would destroy his country. So we have put those tariffs on those countries, and they've retaliated by putting tariffs on us. It's created a trade war. And it's because these countries are so dependent on us. They are leeching off of us. So it's creating a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of uncertainty creates volatility. And uncertainty and volatility are bad for business. It's bad for the economy. So I don't know. At this point, I'm too tired, and I've got too much stuff going on, and I'm too stressed out at the moment to really deep dive into the freight market and the economy. So I will definitely cover those topics in future videos, but for now, let's just skim through the load board. I'm just tell you right now, the freight market sucks, so don't expect to see good loads. So let me just go through here and explain to you why these loads are good or are not good. So Forney, Texas to Salt Lake City, Utah. Forney, Texas is roughly the Dallas area. Salt Lake City is a little freight oasis in the middle of the freight desert. The western half of the United States is a massive freight desert until you get to the coast. The coastal cities like Seattle, Portland, LA, those places, those are really good freight markets. Well, let's not go so far as really good. Seattle and Portland are good freight markets, but there's a lot more freight going into those areas than coming out. So the rates coming out of those areas are not typically that great because there's just an imbalance of loads going into those areas. There's just too many loads going into those areas. But anyway, too much detail. Basically, a lot of trucking companies only operate on the eastern half of the United States because you don't have to travel very far to get freight in the eastern half of the United States. If you operate in the western half of the United States, there's just a massive freight desert in almost the entire western half of the United States is a freight desert. You have to go over to the coastline, those coastal cities, Seattle, Portland, LA, the San Jose area, Central California. You have to go all the way to the coast to get decent loads. And then you have to go all the way back to the central part of the country to get back into the decent loads again. If you take a load into the middle of the freight desert to like Billings, Montana, then you're going to probably lose a lot of money deadheading or taking really cheap freight. There are some little places in the freight desert that have decent loads, like Denver, Salt Lake, Phoenix, places like that. Twin Falls, Idaho, Boise. But ideally, you want to stay away from the freight desert. Loads pay a premium to go into the freight desert, and they pay next to nothing to come out. So Salt Lake City is it's a small freight hub in the middle of the freight desert. So it's not a terrible place to take a load, but it's not that great either. So Dallas to Salt Lake, anything in the freight desert, even if it's going to one of these little oases like Denver or Salt Lake or something like that, it should pay a premium. And if it's going to someplace like Billings, Montana, then it should pay an even bigger premium. So this is a 30,000 pound tire load going to Salt Lake, Dallas to Salt Lake, and it's paying $3 a mile on the full rate, of which I would make approximately $2.10 a mile. This is a mediocre load. It's not terrible, not great. Mays, Kansas. So this is picking up out in the middle of nowhere. So you're most likely going to have some big deadhead miles to go pick the load up. And then, but you can see here on the distance, this Mays, Kansas is actually closer to me than Dallas. But that doesn't really mean anything. That's just where I happen to be. Mays, Kansas is out in the middle of nowhere. So it should pay a premium because you're picking the load up out in the middle of nowhere. And then it's going to Utah. It's going out into the freight desert. So it should pay a premium because of that. And then it's a hazmat load. So it should pay a premium because of that. Is it paying a premium for all those things? Yes, it is. There are two of these loads listed. One is for $3.17 a mile. The other one is for $3.46 a mile. So they're paying a little bit of a premium, but it's not that great of a premium. This is also a really heavy load. It's listed at 39,000 pounds, but it's 39,000 pounds even. If you see a number like this, then it's usually a guesstimate. It's a ballpark estimate. If you see an exact number like this one that's like 16,289 pounds, that's usually what the load weighs. It's going to weigh really close to that. It may weigh that exact amount. So far, these two loads are not that great. They're mediocre. They're not bad, but they're not great either. They're not good loads. They're mediocre loads. They're priced competitively. But this load, like this hazmat load we're looking at right here, let's see. I don't want to bust this out and look and see how long it's. I was going to check and see how long it's been setting on the load board. If a load is really good, it's not going to set on the load board for more than like half an hour, unless it doesn't pick up for a long time. Like if it doesn't pick up for a week or two, then it might set on the load board for several hours, maybe even a day or two. But if it's picking up within the next couple of days and it's a good load, it's not going to sit on the load board for more than like a half hour. If you see something setting on the load board for several hours and it picks up soon, it's not a good load. All right, next one, Louisville, Texas to Raleigh, North Carolina. I think Louisville is also in the Dallas area. Raleigh, North Carolina is a pretty good place. I personally don't like going over to the East Coast. I am a West Coast runner. It's a fairly light load, 16,289 pounds. C-gap, consumer goods or appliances. It has 2 extra stops on it. So it's picking up in the Dallas area, so it does not need to pay a premium on the pickup location. It's delivering to Raleigh, North Carolina, which it may or may not need to pay a premium on that. Normally, you don't need to pay a premium for Raleigh, North Carolina, but there was that really bad hurricane that went through North Carolina, and I'm not sure if you're going to be driving into or through hurricane damaged areas that are still like disaster areas. If you're going to be traveling into or through disaster areas to deliver this load, then it should pay a premium for that. If all of that's been cleaned up and the roads are good to go now, and everything's back to normal, then this load doesn't need to pay a premium on the delivery location. It doesn't need to pay a premium on the weight, on the cargo type. So far, no premiums until we get to the number of stops. It has 2 extra stops on it. It needs to pay a premium for that. And is it paying a premium? No, it's not. This load is paying $2.55 a mile on the full rate. So I get approximately 70% of that, which I'm not going to try to do that in my head. 2.55 times 0.7, $1.78.5. So we'll round it down to $1.78 a mile. So I would make about $1.78 a mile on that load. And that's just kind of really bad. So no, it's a bad load. Well, let's not say bad. Mediocre. It's a mediocre load given how bad the freight market is. All right, next one. Athens, Texas. I'm not sure where Athens, Texas is at. I'm guessing it's somewhere in the ballpark of the Dallas area. So Athens, Texas to Ashland, Ohio. We don't need a premium on the pickup location. We don't need a premium on the delivery location. The weight is reasonable. It's not, max weight. It's building materials. So no premium up to this point needed. Extra stops, yes, it has 1 extra stop on it, so we need a premium for that. Is it paying a premium? No, it's $2.63 a mile on the full rate. This is a mediocre load. Next load, Mount Vernon, Missouri to Heber, California. So does it need to pay a premium on the pickup location? Possibly. I would guess that Mount Vernon is somewhere between like Joplin and Springfield, Missouri. Somewhere in the Joplin, Missouri area. So that is a little bit off the beaten path. It should pay a little bit of a premium to pick up in that area. Heber, California. It should pay a premium to deliver to Heber, California. The last load I delivered was to Dallas. The load I delivered before that one was Heber, California. So I just delivered a load to Heber, California. It's a border town in Southern California on the border of Mexico. So yeah, it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It should pay a premium. It's also a Mexico bound load. I can almost guarantee you that this load is going into Mexico. This is a drop and hook trailer going into Mexico, which is really risky at Landstar. It's for the same agency that I delivered the load to Heber with. So this should pay a premium for going to Heber, California. Also, California is just like a shithole. You don't want to deal with California as a truck driver. Uh, Used to, whenever California had premium rates, then loads going into California paid next to nothing. But California doesn't have premium rates anymore. So they've started paying a premium to get people to take loads into California. It's reversed now. So not only is this load going into California, which should pay a premium, it's going to somewhere out in the middle of nowhere in California, which should pay an additional premium. So we should probably get a premium on the pickup, a double premium on the delivery, maybe even a triple premium on the delivery because of a Landstar specific reason and that is a drop trailer to Mexico. If the agent screws you over and does not give you a trailer, if they tell you that they don't have an empty to give you, you could go out of business because you have to go to Landstar Mexico operations and beg for a trailer. And the trailer wait list at Landstar Mexico operations is typically over a year-long wait. Could you imagine having to wait a year to get another trailer? Would you stay in business if you couldn't haul a load for a year? That's the risk that you take doing a drop trailer to Mexico. Even if the agent tells you that they're going to give you an empty whenever you do the drop trailers, if they tell you it's going to be a drop and hook, that if you know, whenever you actually do the drop, if they don't have an empty to give you, you have no recourse. I don't care what they told you. So it's really risky. This should pay like a triple premium on the delivery. So what else we got here? 35,000 pounds, fairly heavy, not too bad. No premium for the weight. Auto part load, no extra stops. And it's paying $3.33 a mile. That's a mediocre rate for this load. That's a reasonable, like they're factoring in all these premiums to give you that rate. So it's not a great load, but it's a mediocre load. It's been sitting on the load board for almost a full day, 23 hours and 43 minutes. Next, we have Mesquite, Texas, Dallas area going to Salt Lake City. No premium on the pickup. Yes, it needs a premium on the delivery. The weight is mediocre, so no premium. Consumer goods or appliances, no premium. 3 extra stops. They need to pay a premium for that. And it's paying $2.80 a mile. Mediocre, probably a little below mediocre with the 3 extra stops and it's going to the freight desert. That load is paying a little bit on the cheap side for what they're asking. Now let's look at this one right here, Farmers Branch, Texas. I think Farmers Branch is the Amarillo area. I could be wrong on that. I don't really want to click on it because this Landstar load board, this is their new load board and it's really janky. You know, you click on something and it could close the whole window. You have no idea where it's going to take you if you click on something. So I try to avoid clicking on stuff in this new load board. So Farmers Branch, Texas, I think that's the Amarillo area. If it's the Amarillo area, it needs to pay a premium on the pickup location. If it's the Dallas area, no premium needed. I don't know what VLA stands for. Villa Rica, Georgia. No location in Georgia needs to pay a premium. Georgia is a decent freight market. So possible premium on the pickup, no premium on the delivery. Weight is decent, 30,000 pounds. Consumer goods or appliances. 2 extra stops. Need a premium for that. So it's paying $2.59 a mile. This is a mediocre load at best. Now let's refresh and see if anything has changed. All right, there are some changes. I don't know what changed. We have some new loads here. We have a new load and one load disappeared. I don't know which load disappeared. It was the Missouri load, the load that picked up in Missouri and went to, was it the Heber, California load? Yeah, it was the Heber, California load. That one's gone now. So the JRG load, that's the same agency that I hauled that load for to Heber, California. So that auto part load that was paying like, I think it was Was it 333 a mile on the full rate, of which I get about 70%? That load got covered. And I think that load had been on the load board for about a day. It had been on the load board for about 24 hours. Now, did that load get covered? Is that the reason it's gone from the load board? Maybe. Another thing is that I know for a fact is a contract load. That load that was going to Heber, and what that agent will do is if the load sets on the load board without getting covered, they'll pull it off the load board and put it back on at an increased price. And if it still doesn't move, they'll pull it back off and put it back on at an increased price. Now, I think that the agents have the ability to change the details of the load without pulling it and putting it back. So why do they pull it and put it back instead of just updating the details of the load? Well, load alerts. If they take the load off the load board and put it back onto the load board, it generates a new load alert. So we'll wait and see if that load pops back up on the load board the next couple of minutes. If it does, then it's probably just going to be posted at a higher rate. Let's refresh this real quick. Nothing's changed. All right, let's look at the new loads that have been on here. Looks like we just got one new load that's been on the load board for 5 minutes. And if you're wanting to like look at the good loads, then you need to look at loads that are like less than 30 minutes old. So Springdale, Arkansas to Sacramento, California. Springdale, Arkansas. I'm trying to remember if Springdale, Arkansas, I think it's up in that northwest Arkansas area where the Fayetteville is at, like the headquarters of Walmart. I think Springdale's up in that northwest corner of Arkansas. That should pay a premium on the pickup location because it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It's off the beaten path, and you're probably going to have to take toll roads to get there. Or to get out of there, you're going to be taking a toll road. So this should pay a premium on the pickup location because it's out in the middle of nowhere. Sacramento, California should probably pay a little bit of a premium because the California market sucks and it's just a really bad place to take a truck. Weight is good. It's metals. 13 extra stops. This thing needs to pay a huge premium for all those extra stops. So is this load paying a huge premium? Yeah, it is. It's paying a pretty big premium. $3.97 a mile. That's a really good rate for this current market. This is a pretty solid load. And if you look at the total revenue, it's $11,700.40. So you're going to make like $7,500 on this load gross. Let's do the math on that. 11,700.4 times 0.7, 70%. $8,190.28. And they have the accessorial pay broken down. Let's go ahead and click on this, and let's go in and we'll look at the details on this load. Again, if you see the phone number, which, yeah, you can see the phone number, don't call this agent. You're not going to get the load. All right, so it has 11 drops in Texas, 2 drops in Arizona, and 1 drop in California. Direct shipper, no touch. Delivery dates and times are flexible. Aluminum window frames. All right, and they have all of the stops broken down, and they have the accessorial pay. Well, this is one of the things that I don't like about the new load board is that the agent has filled out the accessorial pay, but it doesn't tell you what it is. It just tells you that it exists. If I go look at the old load board, it'll tell me exactly what the accessorial pay is. I have told Landstar about this problem. As a business owner, I need to know the details about the money on the load in order to make a decision on whether or not I want to take that load. I don't know why they withhold this information. It really ticks me off that this information is not displayed because I know it exists. So, what are the deliveries? So, we're picking it up in Springdale, Arkansas. Then you go to Denison, Texas, which I think is the Dallas area. Then you have McKinney, Texas, Dallas, Texas, Longview, Texas, Spring, Texas, Houston, Texas, Houston, Texas, Houston, Texas, San Antonio, Abilene, Amarillo, and then Phoenix, and then Chandler. That is a really bad route because they're taking you from, let me just pull up a map here. Let me pause this real quick while I get this pull up. All right, we're getting it pulled up. Let's turn off the terrain. So Springdale, Arkansas should be up in here. Yeah, right here it is. Springdale, Arkansas is up in this northwest corner of Arkansas. Let's zoom out to where we don't see, thousands of roads. So you're picking it up here in northwest Arkansas, this northwest corner of Arkansas, which is like out in the middle of nowhere. And then you're taking it down to the Dallas area. Then you're taking it down to the Houston area, then San Antonio, and then you're working your way all the way up to Amarillo. And then you're cutting across I-40, and then you're going back down to Phoenix. In my opinion, what you should be doing is you should be going from Springdale. Actually, you know what? It might be a lot less miles the way that they have it routed. But what I would personally probably prefer to do is to go from Springdale to Amarillo, and then down to the Abilene, which I think Abilene, yeah, is right here. Go from Amarillo down to Abilene, then Dallas, then Houston, then San Antonio, and then take I-10 to Phoenix. I don't know. I'd have to run the route on that to see what the mileage difference is. But that's probably the way that I would prefer to do it. And it's flexible scheduling, so I'm quite certain that you can run the route however you want. So if you wanted to run it to Amarillo first instead of Dallas and then down to Houston and then up and then back down, you're going up and down with the route that they have, which might be a shorter mileage route. But if the mileage, even if it's a slightly longer route, it's going to be much easier to go all the way out to Amarillo and then down to Abilene and then Dallas, Houston, and then San Antonio and then to Phoenix. That's going to be a much easier route to run. You're not going to have to deal with all the mountains over in the Flagstaff area. So if it's, within like 50 or 100 miles of the same mileage, and I'm not going to bother to map it out and put all of the destinations in to figure out what the exact mileage difference is. But if it's really close to the same mileage, then going to Amarillo first would be a lot better than going to Dallas first. But anyway, is this a good load? Yes, this is a really good load. The load is scheduled to end March 31st. So it's an 11-day load. So it's like a week and a half load, but you're going to make over $8,000 gross to the truck in a week and a half. So that is, that's about $5,500 a week. I don't know, somewhere in the ballpark of that. 50, roughly about $5,500 a week gross to the truck. And it's going to be a really big mileage week and a half. Well, not 3,000 miles for a single week. That's a big mileage week. But for a week and a half, that's not too bad. It is going to be a lot of work with all those deliveries. But this is actually a pretty good load. And this type of load, you're only going to see these loads if you have load alerts set up or you're sitting here refreshing. If you are working off of a load board, you're picking your own loads off of a load board, you really, 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 really need to utilize load alerts, because the really good loads usually are booked within a couple of minutes. So you need to get the load alert, you need to look at it really quick, and then you need to call as fast as you can to be able to book these really good loads. I suspect whenever I refresh, this load's going to be gone. So let's give it a second. It's gone. See, that load is gone. That load was probably booked within the first 2 minutes that it was posted. But it took the agent 5 or 10 minutes to remove it from the load board. So yeah, really good loads like that. That was a really good load. Me personally, I don't like doing multi-stop loads. I don't like doing those types of loads, but given how bad the freight market is and how good that load was, if I were in a position right now where I could have picked that load up, I probably would have booked that load. Like right now, if I had a trailer and I wasn't on hold, I would have booked that load. Yeah, I would have taken that load. But yeah, you have to use load alerts if you want to have good loads. If you're just booking the loads that are setting on the load board, like these loads are right here, you're going to struggle. This is the crap that nobody wants. The good stuff, it's only on the load board for a couple minutes. All right, so there's not a lot of movement on the load board. Now, let me show you something. Let me pause this while I bring another screen up. All right, so now what I want to show you is the total number of loads on Landstar's load board. So let's see, right now it says 10 available loads. There are 10 available loads based off my search parameters that I have set up. So let's clear the search, and this should, with no search parameters at all, this should tell us the total number of loads on Landstar's load board. 69,521. So what does that mean? You can get a rough idea of how busy the freight market is based off the total number of loads. If you're familiar with a load board, and then you can watch the total number of loads on the board, and that will give you a rough idea of whether it's a slow day or a busy day. So honestly, I have not been paying a lot of attention to the total loads on Landstar's load board for the last few months. So I'm not sure if this is high or low. I think it is kind of high. To put this into some kind of perspective, back during the freight boom, we were hitting total loads on Landstar's load board. I think the highest I ever saw was somewhere around 115,000 loads. Somewhere in the ballpark of like 115,000 loads. Almost twice as many loads that are on here as there are on here right now. But there's been several changes since then. One of the biggest changes that's happened since then is sanctions. When Russia invaded Ukraine, there were a massive number of loads that disappeared from Landstar's load board because of sanctions. I'm not going to claim to know the details. And you know what? While I'm talking about this, let me pause this, and I'm going to go ahead and do another search on another area so you can look at that while I'm talking. So let me pause this real quick. All right, so we're doing the exact same search that we were doing a minute ago. I just changed the origin from Oklahoma City to Fontana, California. So it's looking for loads within a 250-mile radius around Fontana, which is basically the LA area. And I think it goes 250 miles would also include Vegas. Usually, whenever I'm searching the Fontana area, I take it down to like 150 miles. Um, oh my goodness. We have tons of these Moreno Valley loads, which I think they are that same. Yeah, it's the FLS agency. That is the Harbor Freight. That's the load that I took to get out of California. I delivered that load in Heber, California, and then I took a Harbor Freight load out of Moreno, California to Dallas, which was a lot of drama. So yeah, we have the FLS agency posting tons of loads coming out of Moreno Valley. These are all Harbor Freight loads by the FLS agency. And like you're look at all these loads you're seeing. You're seeing one, two, three, four, five, six loads. But that's not all the loads. If you look over here, um, all of these loads, there's two or three of them listed. So this Moreno Valley to Helena, Montana, there's three of those loads. So there's three loads going from Moreno Valley to Helena, not just one. So this one agent has, let's see here, 3, 6, 9, 11, 13, 15 loads going out of Moreno Valley, California right now. This one agent has 15 Harbor Freight loads coming out of Moreno Valley right now. Now, some of these are not picking up for long periods of time. You see the pickup date here? This one doesn't pick up until April 7th. March 31st, March 28th. But these are, let's see, are these good loads? Helena, Montana, Butte, Montana, Bozeman, Montana. So all these Montana loads are going into the freight desert. So picking up in Moreno Valley, California, does that need to pay a premium? No. Delivering to Helena, Montana, that needs to pay a massive premium because you're probably going to be deadheading 500 to 1,000 miles to get your next load. Otherwise, you're going to be hauling something for like 80 cents a mile. If you find a load coming out of the Helena, Montana area, something within 200 miles of Helena, it's most likely going to be paying like $1.20 a mile on the full rate. So you're going to be getting like 90 cents a mile or something on that load. And it's probably going to be a max weight hazmat load. Like it's just horrible, horrible loads. If you find a load in the freight desert, it's usually just absolutely horrendous loads like that. I will show you in a minute. So is this paying enough of a premium to lure me into the freight desert? No. At an absolute minimum, it needs to pay $5 a mile on the full rate for me to even consider taking a load into the freight desert. And these loads, $3.80 a mile to $4.28 a mile on the full rate. There's another one for $4.28 a mile. Here's another one for $3.80 a mile. So no, these loads are really bad loads. But what's probably going to end up happening, what usually ends up happening with loads like this, is you'll get a driver that does not understand the freight market that will just see $3.80 a mile or $4.28 a mile. And they'll be like, oh my goodness, that's an awesome load. And they'll book this crap. That's what usually ends up happening with these loads. This load should be paying like $8 a mile. That would make it a decent load. Basically, this load needs to pay double what a normal load pays. Because you're probably going to be deadheading as far as the load, as you're driving to deliver the load. You're probably going to have to deadhead, that many miles. So what about the other ones? We have Texas loads: Sherman, Texas; Pasadena, Texas; Houston, Texas. These are two of them are max weight. One of them is listed as only 1,000 pounds. So the 42,000 pound loads, those should pay a premium because of how heavy they are. The one that's only listed as 1,000 pounds has an extra stop on it, so it should pay a premium for that. Are these loads paying premiums? No, they're not. These are all mediocre loads. What else we got? Man, we got a ton more. Oh, Moreno Valley, Moreno Valley, Moreno Valley. Uh, are these the same Moreno Valley? So we have the San Diego. There we go. San Diego to Washington, no premium needed on the pickup. There is a premium needed on the destination. No premium on weight, no premium on commodity, no extra stops. Um, Not a very good load. Paris, California. I'm not sure exactly where Paris, California is at. It's 26 miles from Fontana, so it's no premium needed on the pickup. The destination is actually an awesome destination, Dallas, Texas. So they can actually pay a slightly lower rate on really good destinations. So this load could pay below market and still be a good load. Weight's good, commodities good, no extra stops. This is actually a pretty good load. Even though it's only paying 256 a mile, Dallas, Texas is a very like highly sought after destination. I don't suspect that this load will sit on the load board for too terribly long. It doesn't pick up until March 28th. If this load picked up within the next day or two, it probably wouldn't be on the load board right now. It probably already been covered. It's pretty easy to move loads going to places like Dallas, Texas. There's a lot of people that want to go to Dallas. Santa Clarita to Justin, Texas. Not sure exactly where Justin is at. Weight is okay. Commodities okay. No extra stops. Mediocre load. Paris, California to Pflugerville, Texas. I suspect that this is probably the same load that's going to Grand Prairie. This is something that you'll encounter with the agents is like each agent may put in like a different zip code or a different city name as the delivery location. You may have, one load listed like 10 times on the load board, and the pickup city and the destination cities are different on each one of the loads, but they're all really close to each other. You'll get a lot of that happen on loads because of the way the agents just kind of half-ass their job. So these might be the, exact same load, these Paris, California to Grand Prairie and Pflugerville, Texas loads. They're really similar in price. And then we have a bunch more of these Moreno Valley Harbor Freight loads. So Moreno Valley to Lansing, Kansas. I'm not sure where exactly Lansing is at. If it's close to Kansas City, then it doesn't need to pay a premium. If it's out in like Wichita, Kansas, it needs to pay a premium. It's a max weight load, 42,000 pounds, needs to pay a little bit of a premium for that. It's paying $321 a mile. So my guess is that Lansing, Michigan is out in the middle of nowhere for it to be paying $321 a mile because it is paying a premium. It's a mediocre load. Moreno Valley, California to Hope, Arkansas. I'm not sure exactly where Hope is at. I think it's south of Little Rock. I'm not sure though. That might need to pay a bit of a premium on the destination, a little bit of a premium on the weight. It's max weight load. Consumer goods were good. No extra stops. 261 a mile. Mediocre load. Moreno Valley to Dallas, Texas. Max weight needs a little bit of a premium. 281 a mile. That's a really solid load. Just because of the destination. Dallas, Texas being the destination. At 281 a mile, that load is going to move. But it doesn't pick up until April 11th. So what does this tell me? This tells me that the LA market sucks. If I were to remove the Harbor Freight loads from this list, there would be almost no loads posted. There's almost nothing coming out of the LA area that's worth a damn. Now, these are not all of the LA loads. I do have filters set up. I don't want to see loads that are paying like $1 a mile. So yeah, this sucks. The LA market sucks. California sucks in general for truck drivers. So if the California market is not paying a premium to take freight out of California, then I recommend for drivers to avoid California. So at this point, I would be avoiding California because the rates suck coming out of California. I typically judge California based on how many loads over $8,000 there are. And by $8,000, I'm talking about $8,000 on Landstar's load board. So that would be the full rate. Let's see, 8,000 times 0.7. That would be a $5,600 load for me. If I'm getting 70% of the load, then an $8,000 load on the load board would pay me about $5,600. So that's generally how I judge the LA market, is how many loads over $8,000 there are coming out of the LA market. And right now, the highest paying load is $4,870. There's not a single load over $8,000 coming out of the LA market. Now that's not, let me backtrack a little bit on that, because I have the minimum rate per mile set at $250 a mile. There might be loads over $8,000 that are just at a much lower mileage rate than $250 a mile. Let's take it down to $2 a mile. And let's run that. Still, that Helena, Montana load is the highest paying load at $4,870. This is actually, no, it's not sorting by that because there was a $5,000 load down there. I don't know what it's sorting by. All right, so the highest paying load is Visalia, California to Tulsa, Oklahoma with 4 extra stops on it, 5,000 pounds of consumer goods or appliances. Big mileage load, 2,438 miles because of all the extra stops, $2.07 a mile, which is about $1.43. So 2.07 times 0.7, $1.44.9. So $1.45 a mile. Paying $5,058.09. The California, the LA market is absolute trash right now. Avoid California. This market is hideous. Absolutely hideous. Because remember, the western half of the United States is a big freight desert. So you can get loads that pay a premium to go to the coastal cities like Seattle, Portland, or LA. But then how do you get back over to the central part of the country or further east? It's going to be difficult for you to get back over. You're going to get stuck over on the West Coast hauling cheap freight. If you take they're going to lure you into taking a load over to the West Coast, and then you're going to struggle to get back out. So the California market is absolutely hideous. Let's switch this over. Let me put this back at $2.50 a mile. There's no way in hell I'm running a load lower. I'm not even going to run a load at $2.50 a mile, because at $2.50 a mile, what is that? $1.75 a mile. 2.5 times 0.7 is $1.75. So yeah, if a load is posted at $2.50 a mile, I'm only making $1.75 a mile gross to the truck. Then I have all of my expenses that come out of that. So I would be lucky to make like maybe $1 a mile on one of those loads after all of my expenses. And I have really low expenses compared to most people. You're getting in the realm of company driver money when you're making $1 a mile. you're not going to stay in business for long if your profit is like 70, 80 cents, a dollar a mile. Because unexpected expenses can easily wipe that money out, wipe all that profit out. So let's change this from Fontana to Portland, uh, Portland, Oregon. 250-mile radius should also include the Seattle area. 5 loads. So yeah, Portland to Memphis, Tennessee. Um, so we're good on the origin, we're good on the destination. Everything is awesome about this load so far. 35,000 pounds is not too bad. It's a lot of mountain driving, so heavy loads really suck. Consumer goods or appliances, no extra stops. Like everything is amazing about this load so far. And then we get to the rate per mile, 270 a mile. That's actually a pretty solid rate coming out of Portland. And you're going to a good destination. This load does not pick up until April 12th. And it's been sitting on the load board for 6 days. So this is a really good load. Let's look at the details and see if there's any gotchas on this load, because so far everything I'm looking at on the load. So this is the CGI agency, which has the SIA contracts. And if we look at the comments here, it says this lane may contain hazmat. These are all drop and hook loads. So this is a SIA load. All trucks must bring in empty Landstar trailer. If you are interested in booking or holding this load, and it's between the hours of 5 p.m. and 7 a.m. So if it's overnight, please send us an email to CGI Agency. Please reference the load number, origin, destination, pickup date. We monitor our emails throughout the day. We will get in touch with you ASAP. So yeah, this is a SIA load with the CGI Agency. I've hauled several loads for them in the past. And these loads generally pay really amazing fuel surcharge. Let me pause this and I'm going to bring up the old Landstar load board, because right now it says that the accessorial pay is there, the fuel surcharge is listed, but it doesn't tell me what it is. The old load board will, and I bet you it's way above market average. So let me pause this. All right, now we're doing the exact same search on the old Landstar load board. And right here it is, Portland, Oregon to Memphis, Tennessee. And let's look at the load details in the old load board. And right here it is. The accessorial pay is $1,126.50. The fuel surcharge is $1,126.50. A lot of times it'll break down to what that is per mile, but it's not telling us what that is per mile right here. So let's figure out what that is per mile. Got to remember how to math here. So where's the mileage at? It's 2238 miles. I think we divide that by the amount, 1126.5. No, that's not right. It can't be that much. It's the reverse. 1126.5 divided by 2238. So 50 cents a mile. That is not that amazing. Let me pause this and I'll pull up Landstar's fuel surcharge sheet. All right. Well, unfortunately, I cannot show you Landstar's fuel surcharge prices right now because their site is under maintenance. If I search for anything, it's just, there's no results. There's fuel, maintenance. If I leave it blank, there's nothing's happening. So yeah, I can't, I forget what exactly it's called. There's a document that they keep up, that they keep on here that you can look at. I forgot the exact name of the document. It's not like called Landstar fuel surcharge. It's like rates and something. I can't remember the name. But all right, let's go back to the load board. I think that right now the fuel surcharge is somewhere around like 32 cents a mile, 36 cents a mile, something like that. So that 50 cents a mile is paying above average, but it's not amazing. Uh, the CGI, the Saya account used to pay like 2 to 3 times what normal surcharge was. So back when the fuel surcharge was like 50 cents a mile, those Saya loads would pay like $1.50 a mile fuel surcharge. It was crazy, which was amazing. They paid really well. All right, let me pause this. All right, we're back looking at the loads. So um, let me talk about some terminology here real quick for people who are not familiar with the freight market. So lane. What is a lane? A lane is a very specific route, like Portland to Dallas. That is a lane. I refer to them as markets. Um, so when I'm judging like what a good rate is or what a bad rate is, I'm looking at the origin market and the destination market. So the LA market, the Dallas market. But if you're talking about a specific route, like if you're talking about LA to Dallas, that is a lane. So what the CGI agency is referring to in regard to this lane is they're talking about the loads that they have under this contract that go from the Portland terminal to the Memphis terminal. This particular lane, Portland to Memphis, on this contract may contain hazmat. This is, a Saya load. This is an LTL. This is a less than a load carrier. And they have no idea what's going to be in these trailers until the day that they load them. Saya is not going to know what's in the trailer until they get it loaded. And the CGI agent is not going to know what's in the trailer until the load gets delivered or you tell them. So they're just giving you a heads up of what may be on this load. And they generally put 35,000. Yeah, it's 35,000 pounds weight. I know for a fact that the contract is 42,000 pounds. So if the load is over 42,000 pounds, then Saya is in breach of contract. What does that mean? I don't know. These agents don't like to piss off their customers. So if it's like 42,100 pounds, I suggest that you don't say anything about it. You just haul it because you're going to piss off CGI if you try to make a big deal out of it because CGI does not want to piss off Saya. But if it's like 45,000 pounds, that's a pretty big overage. That's quite a lot of weight over the contract. What I would do to handle that situation is if they handed me the paperwork and it said that the load was 45,000 pounds, I would go to the shipping office and I'd say, hey, I thought that the load is listed at 45,000 pounds here. And I thought that the contract on this was a maximum of 42,000 pounds. Are you familiar with that? And hopefully you get somebody that's like, oh yeah, they must not have realized we must have, we've got, Randy over there. He's a new guy. He doesn't know the details about that. Go ahead and back it up to door whatever, and we'll pull some stuff off of it. That's hopefully what happens. But what could happen is you might get somebody that's like, can you not scale it? Can you not haul that? Somebody that's just like pissed off that you're even telling them about this. And that can end up being a lot of drama. So, yeah, it's you may be able to get people to do what they're supposed to do, but it may like ruin your reputation. CGI may not want to work with you again in the future if you make a big deal out of, Saya being overweight on their trailer. It's unfortunately that's how the business is. They hold us to a really high standard as drivers, and they will just flat out refuse us entering property. They'll kick us off the property. They'll refuse us loads. They'll steal the load from us, all that stuff. They don't care about us. But if we give any pushback to them, they get really pissed off. And it's because they have all the power. There's just so many of us that they can easily find somebody else to move the loads, especially when they're good paying loads. Now, if they're bad paying loads, then you might have a little bit of wiggle room. But generally, if you're dealing with bad paying freight, you're dealing with some really shady people. I avoid cheap freight for several reasons. It's not just that the freight is cheap, there are a lot of reasons why you should avoid cheap freight. Because if you're hauling cheap freight, you're not just hauling cheap freight. You are working with people that are operating under that business model. Their security personnel were hired under that same business model. The property that they rent or lease is under that same business model. The dock workers are under that same business model. The brokers are under that same business model. All of the support personnel with the company and everybody else you're going to interact with, everything is under that cheap business model. They're just trying to maximize profit. They don't care at all about quality. So I don't like operating with companies that pay cheap on freight, because that's the way their business operates. And you do not want to operate, you don't want to do business with somebody that operates, under that business model. It can be extremely frustrating. And those are the type of businesses that often will like refuse payment, and you'll have, payment issues with them. You'll have all kinds of issues with them. So it's not just that you're hauling a cheap load, you're operating under their business model, and you don't want to do that. It's really bad. All right, so let's refresh. Something happened, I think. No, maybe. No, nothing changed. I don't think anything changed. So, state in Oregon to Pahrump, Nevada, 32 extra stops. And this is something that you see a lot of on the loads coming out of the Portland area, the Portland, Seattle area. The decent paying loads, you see a lot of really big stop loads. Some agent over here in this area, there's actually 2 or 3 agents that move loads out of the Seattle, Portland area that are massive stop loads. And every single load that's pulling up in the search results, except that one we were just looking at, has extra stops on it. So 32 extra stops, 24 extra stops, 4 extra stops, and 14 extra stops. Are these loads paying a massive premium? No, they're not. $365 a mile for 32 extra stops. You're doing a total of 33 deliveries on this load, and it's only paying $365 a mile. That's a lot of work. I would not touch that load. I don't like doing extra stop loads. I think the most extra stops I've done on a load was like 2 or 3. So a total of 3 or 4 deliveries on a load, I think, is the most I've ever done. I think the only multi-stop loads that I've done are for the LTL agency, and they have a contract with some HVAC company. I can't remember if it's Linux or Train. I think it's whoever Train is. They have 2 different, I know that they have 2 different brands. One of them is their commercial and the other one's their consumer. And I think it's whoever has the Train brand HVAC units. That's who LTL has the company with. There's one of their facilities is in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And I think those are the only multi-stop loads I've ever done. Not 100% on that. Yeah, all these loads are bad. All these loads are really bad, except this Portland to Memphis. The Portland to Memphis load is actually a really good load. This is a this isn't like a great load or an amazing load or a unicorn load, but it's a really good load because Portland is a pretty bad freight market. For a load to be paying 270 a mile on the full rate and it's going to a good location, Memphis, Tennessee, this is a good load. If this load didn't pick up, like it doesn't pick up until April 12th. If this load was picking up in the next couple of days, this load would be gone from the load board. So that's actually a good load. All right, so I'm going to try to do two other things real quick. Um, I had two requests for load board. I had somebody that said that they want to run loads between LA and Phoenix, so they wanted me to look at loads between LA and Phoenix. And I had somebody else that wanted to look at team loads. So let me pause this and I'm going to pull up LA to Phoenix real quick. All right, I'm just doing a really basic search. All van trailer types, max weight 45,000 pounds, origin Fontana, destination Phoenix, 500-mile radius around both of them. So this is going to give us loads going to other places, but it's going to give us basically loads in between. LA and Phoenix are within 500 miles of each other. So it's going to give us loads going back and forth in that region. I set it as a minimum of $1,500, a minimum of $3 per mile, no team loads. And we have 25 available loads. So let's look. So Reno to Vegas, San Jose to Vegas, Ontario. Okay, Ontario, California is the LA area to Tucson, Arizona. So 44,000 pounds of hazmat paying $3.33 a mile. It's at my absolute minimum that I have set of $1,500. Again, that's the full rate. We only get about 70% of that. 1,500 times 0.7 is $1,050. So you're going to get paid about $1,000 to go from LA. I think Tucson is in Phoenix. Is Tucson? I can't remember how far away Tucson is. Let's look real quick. I'm surprised that this thing hasn't crashed on us. Okay, so Tucson is a decent ways away from Phoenix. So 450 miles, 333 a mile. So you're gonna get paid $1,000 to go from LA to Tucson. Muscoy, California it's only 7 miles from Fontana, so it's in the LA area. Never heard of that town. Another one going to Tucson. It's probably the exact same load. Like I mentioned earlier, these agents will put in different zip codes that'll show up as different origin and destination cities. But if they're really close to each other, then and they're especially if they're paying the exact same price, they're both paying $1,500. Then I think agents do this on purpose. You'll notice that the rate per mile is 11 cents per mile difference, just based off them putting in a different zip code that's like 10 miles away. Or actually, it's only 5 miles difference between the two of them. Okay, that's LA to Utah, California, Utah. Okay, here's LA to Maricopa, Arizona. I think Phoenix is in Maricopa County, isn't it? So this should be LA to Phoenix. This is that FLS agent. This is a Harbor Freight load. It's paying $4.84 a mile. $1,649. It's max weight consumer goods. So this is a decent load. Riverside to Tucson, Ontario to Tucson, a whole bunch of max weight hazmat loads going to Tucson. 336 a mile, 469 a mile, $1,500 to $2,000. I think all of these Tucson loads that we're seeing, all of these max weight hazmat Tucson loads, I think it's a spot market load that a whole bunch of Landstar agents are bidding on. So it's most likely going to move at a cheap price. They're just bidding it, and who knows what price it's actually going to move at. Reno. A whole bunch of Reno loads going to California, paying like $5 a mile. Chino to Chandler, Arizona, 469 a mile. And here is Carson, California to Phoenix, max weight hazmat, 427 a mile, like $1,500. Okay, here is the first load that I've seen going from the Tucson or Phoenix area back into California. Actually, no, I take that back. It's going to Roswell, New Mexico. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of loads for about somewhere in the ballpark of like $1,500 on the full rate. So about $1,000 gross to the truck. So it looks like you could probably fairly consistently run from the LA area to the Phoenix or Tucson area for about $1,000 a load. And it's approximately, 500 miles. Let's see. Where was that Maricopa load at? There it is. 341 miles. So no, that's quite a bit shorter. So 4.84 times 70%, so 338 a mile. So yeah, you could probably run for over $3 a mile going from the LA area to the Phoenix or Tucson area. About $1,000 a load, which you have to take into consideration. This is most likely not same day loads. So you have to factor in about 2 days per load. So you're getting about $1,000 per load. And what's the time on this one? It picks up April 9th and it delivers April 10th. So you should factor 2 days per load, the 9th and the 10th. So you're looking at $1,000 per load, 2 days. So divide that in half. So you're getting $500 a day gross to the truck. That's really bad. That's really horrendous money for an owner operator. $500 a day is abysmal for an owner operator as a gross to the truck. Now, if you're making $500 a day after expenses, you're doing really well. Well, not really well, but you're doing pretty good. But if you're making $500 a day gross to the truck, you're doing very, very, very badly. So yeah, it's not very lucrative to haul loads from LA to the Phoenix or Tucson area. The pay is atrocious. This is horrible. And I'm not even going to bother trying to search for loads coming from Phoenix or Tucson back into the LA area. Those loads should show up in these search results. And I'm not seeing any of them, which means that it's going to be much, much, much cheaper to come back from the Phoenix, Tucson area into LA. So you're going to get paid real cheap to go from LA to Phoenix, and then you're going to get paid even cheaper to come back from Phoenix to LA. It would not be lucrative. You would most likely go out of business doing that with the current rates that I'm seeing on Landstar's load board. All right, now let me pause this and we're going to do a team load search. All right, before we do team, we're going to do solo van loads. We'll do solo van, then we'll do team, then we'll do solo reefer, then we'll do team reefer. Actually, did I choose? Okay, never mind. I saw reefer right here, but no, these are, I have it restricted to vans, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so this is all of the loads across all of Landstar. No destination or origin restrictions. I'm just sorting by price. I'm just looking for loads that are over $3 a mile and pay a minimum of $3,000. So what are the best loads on Landstar's load board for a solo van? And we have Watertown, Connecticut to Anchorage, Alaska. Loads that are paying $4 a mile. These are massive mileage loads, 4,400-mile loads, $18,000. You do not want to take one of these loads to Alaska. Don't get lured into this crap. These loads have been sitting on the load for 5-6 days. They're not moving. They're not going to get covered. Nobody's hauling this crap. Don't get lured into this. So Alaska, 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 Alaska. Okay, here's Oregon. Jackson, Mississippi to Newburgh, Oregon. 44,000 pounds of machinery, 4 extra stops, 2,681 miles, $5.61 a mile, $15,000. That looks like a phenomenal load. Let's take a look at it and see if there's any weird gotchas in the comments. Must live within 300 miles of Jackson, Mississippi. Owner operator, company trailer. Have a 2018 or newer truck. No teams. What? That does not make any sense at all. What that tells me, based on the comments, is that this is not like one single load. Where are the stops on this? So it's picking up in Jackson, Mississippi, and then it's going to Liberty Lake, Washington, Seattle, Washington, Tacoma, Washington, Hillsboro, Oregon, and then Newburgh, Oregon. So there's something weird about this load, because you must live within 300 miles of Jackson, Mississippi. Why would you have that requirement? You also must be an owner operator. Why would you have that requirement? What does that mean? Like, I'm an owner operator. But there are people who are just operators. Like, there are people like me that are leased to Landstar that they own multiple trucks, and they have people that just drive for them. And they're not owner operators, they are just operators. So this has a requirement that in order to haul this load, you must be an owner operator. You can't be just an operator. You also must have a company trailer. And you must have a 2018 or newer truck. No teams. That is a lot of weird requirements. So there's some very vital information that they are leaving out about this load. And given that this load picks up tomorrow at 8 a.m., how long has it been sitting on the load board? It's been sitting on the load board for 2.5 hours, and it picks up tomorrow at 8 a.m. This is an absolutely phenomenal load. $15,037.80. It's a 1-week load. It's from March 20th to March 26th. A 1 week, a single week load, 2,681 miles, $15,037.80 times 0.7. That's $10,526 gross to the truck. That is a phenomenal load. But there's something wrong with it. That load would not be sitting on the load board right now if that agent were providing correct information about the load. So there is information that the agent is intentionally leaving off of the load listing so that they can increase the number of people calling in on the load. There's something really bad about that load that the agent is being misleading about to get the load at the top of the load board list and to increase the number of people calling on the load. Um, the agent is IKK. I've never seen that agency code before. But I suspect that's a really like shady agent. Here's another almost identical load that they have listed. Let's see if they have different notes in the comments on this load. So they're not copying and pasting the comments. It has about the same information, but it's not a copy and paste. It's the same information, but it's written differently. You know, must have a 2018 or newer truck, company trailer, owner operator, live within 300 miles of Jackson, Mississippi, no teams. So there's something about this that makes it a bullshit load. All right, we'll come back and maybe dig into those. I'm trying to skip through all these Anchorage, Alaska loads. Here's another Jackson, Mississippi to Boston, Massachusetts that's paying really big money. Multi-stop load from that IKK agent. Staten, Oregon to Thornton, Colorado. This is a 38 stop load, paying $375 a mile. That's not a very good load for that many stops. $8,831.80. Jackson, Mississippi. It's that same IKK agent. Apparently, they're moving a lot of these loads out of Jackson, Mississippi. It's machine parts. So it's machines. Suffolk, Virginia to Ontario, California, which is LA. $3 a mile. Huge mileage load. It's a mediocre load, but I'm not going into the LA area on a mediocre load because the LA area is a really crap market. The loads to get you from LA back to the central part of the country or further east pay nothing. So if you take a mediocre load over to LA, you're going to have to take a really cheap load out of LA to get back to the eastern half of the country. So no, the only way I'm going to LA is if it's paying some ridiculous premium, which is the opposite of the way it was a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago, the loads going into LA paid nothing because the loads coming out of LA paid crazy money. Fresno to Canada, 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 a whole bunch of Canada loads. Okay. Laverne, Tennessee to the Dales, Oregon. Electronics. So this is the JQL. This is the Google account. $3.18 a mile, $7,185.21. That's a pretty decent load. It's not amazing, but it's a good load. This is a good load. It's been sitting on the load board for 3 hours. It'll probably get covered. Well, maybe not. It picks up today between noon and 4 p.m. It's already past the pickup appointment. It's 3:57 p.m. Central, and I'm not sure if Laverne, Tennessee is in Central or East Coast time zone. Um, but it's past. You cannot make the pickup appointment. They did not cover this load. Laverne, Tennessee to the Dales, Oregon. The Dales, Oregon is, I don't know, like 100 miles, 60 to 100 miles, or 50 to 100 miles east of Portland. Um, 20,000 pounds of electronics. Google account, 318 a mile. It's not a great load, but it's a good load. I'm Really surprised this load is not getting covered. Um, Canada. All right, Pennsylvania to Salt Lake City. 344 a mile. That's not. It has two extra stops and it's going to the freight desert. It's paying 344 a mile. Not a very good load. Louisiana, Canada, Salt Lake. I don't even look at Canada loads. Uh, I couldn't even haul a Canada load. There are certain territories in Canada that require your truck be governed at 65 or lower. And my truck is governed at like 86 miles an hour. So I don't even look at Canada loads. I don't even look at Alaska loads. I'm not hauling that crap. Salt Lake City to Austin, Texas. What? What? $5.31 going from Salt Lake to Austin? That is crazy. And it's only 6 pounds. All right, let's look at the details on this. This load is insane. Team truck required by customer. No exceptions. Load picks up Tuesday morning. Appointment is at 9 a.m. But if you need more time, let me know and I'll reschedule. Deliver by 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. the next day in Austin, Texas. Non-hazmat, shrink wrapped, palletized, live load, live unload. Takes about 1 hour to load and less than an hour to unload. Only 20,000 pounds or less. So the 6 pounds is just an absolute lie. This agent knows approximately how much the load weighs, and they put a fictitious number up there. They put 6 pounds. They know that it's going to weigh somewhere around 20,000 pounds. But they put 6 pounds up there, which what else are they lying about? I have it set up to not show team loads. I thought I did. Right there, it says team yes. Let's go back here. Let's look at my search parameters. Flags. Team all. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. Did all those IKK loads disappear? All right, so yeah, I am so sorry. I think all those IKK loads were team loads. All right, let's make sure that we're sorting by total revenue. All right, Alaska, 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 Alaska. No, the IKK loads are still showing up here. So the IKK load is not a team load. All those IKK loads, there's something else wrong with them. Carlsbad to Reno. Carlsbad, California to Reno, Nevada. This was just posted 1 minute ago. This could be a legitimate load. Let's look at the details on it. No comments. $24.09 per mile. $14,500. 602 miles. Picks up today between 8 and 2. So this is a last second load, and it delivers not tomorrow, but the next day. Today's Wednesday, right? So it delivers Friday between 7 a.m. and 11 a.m. in Reno, Nevada. So it goes from Carlsbad, California to Reno, Nevada. So is this a legitimate load? I doubt it. I suspect that this has one extra zero on it. So this load does not pay $14,500. This load pays $1,450. which makes it a $2.40 a mile load, not a $24 a mile load. So this load, I'm 99.999% sure that this is bullshit. This is a typo. Whoever put the load in put an extra zero in the revenue. So just completely forget about that load. It's just a really, really cheap $2.40 short mile run. It's a ridiculously cheap load. Here's another one of those IKK loads. It's paying like $6 a mile for over 2,000 miles, $13,000. Let's look and see what the comments are on this one. Same thing. Like, I'm trying to find a legitimate good load. This Suffolk, Virginia to LA, 325 a mile, paying 8,500 bucks. That's decent, but man, it's only 3 days. No, that's got to be a team load. It picks up on March 19th, delivers March 22nd. That's impossible for a solo driver to do 2,600 miles in 3 days. Team, no. It's not listed as a team load, but the pickup and delivery appointments require a team. So that's a team run. Canada, 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 Canada. All right. Louisiana to Montana. It's going to the freight desert, $4 a mile. That's not good. State in Oregon to Pahrump, Nevada, 32 stop load, paying $365 a mile. Not good. More of these IKK loads. Let's click on these two IKK loads and see if they have different comments on them. Nope. Machinery or machine parts. Max weight, machinery or machine parts. They have a lot of requirements. A 2018 or newer truck. My truck is a 2016. I couldn't haul this load. Company trailer, owner operator, no teams. So there are two requirements that I don't meet on this load. I don't live within 300 miles of Jackson, Mississippi, and I don't have a 2018 or newer truck. Why would they care if your truck is 2018 or newer? That tells me that they care about your truck's appearance. Why would they care if you lived within 300 miles of Jackson, Mississippi? And why would they care if you're a team? Why would you not want a team? These are some odd requirements. And I'm probably going to be sitting here thinking about this for hours. I'm tempted to call the agent, even though I have no, I don't meet the requirements for the load. There's absolutely no way that I can book this load, but I'm really tempted to call the agent just to I'm just so curious about like, what in the hell is this? Let me pause this while I think about it for a minute. All right, I did little bit of digging on this agent, and it turns out this is a 66-year-old guy that lives in Iowa, and he owns a company called, or he's partnered or something. He's associated with a company called Big River Rentals, which rents machines, tractors, and stuff like that, which is weird because this is telling me that these are flatbed or step deck loads, and you're most likely delivering or picking up this rental equipment. And they have a location in Canton, Mississippi, which is just outside of Jackson, Mississippi. So let's go back and look at the details on one of these loads. It is listed as a van. And you're most likely hauling rental equipment to locations or picking up rental equipment from locations or both. Yeah, these loads don't make any sense at all to me. Anyway, let's not. I'm just really curious. I want to know like what the deal is with those loads. Because this agent has a whole bunch of them. New York to Midland, Texas, 45,000 pounds of hazmat, $3 a mile. It's a decent load. Like, I'm not seeing any like really amazing loads. The only amazing loads that I'm seeing are those IKK loads, and they have a lot of weird requirements, and I'm fairly certain that like there's something off on those loads. Okay, let's go back to the search and let's change it over to team. Let's do team yes and just look at team loads. And let's make sure that it's sorting by revenue. So just skimming through here, Suffolk, Virginia to LA, $3 a mile, $8,000. Not a very good load. Canada, okay. Another Suffolk to LA, $3 a mile, $8,000. Canada, Pennsylvania to Salt Lake, 2 extra stops for $344 a mile. Not that great. Salt Lake City to Austin, Texas. This is that 6-pound load that we looked at earlier. That's actually 20,000 pounds. I can't remember all the details on the load, but yeah, it was a team load. So this is a decent load for a team. It's paying $531 a mile on the full rate. It's getting you out of the freight desert of Salt Lake and getting you to Austin, Texas. It's getting you from a bad freight market to a good freight market. So that's a decent load. Nothing amazing, but pretty decent. Salt Lake to Salt Lake. Now, these are the type of loads that you really want to see. These round trip loads. This could be a dedicated run. This is the CGI agency, which has the SIA contract. So let's take a look at this. This might be a dedicated SIA run. Round trip for team. Same route available every week. So this is Salt Lake to Omaha, Nebraska. So right now, there is a dedicated SIA run for a team that is doing just back and forth, going from Salt Lake to Omaha, Nebraska, back to Salt Lake. 1 load per week. So it's not great money for a team because it's really low mileage for a team. But if you're like a super chill, like retired team, you're not out here trying to make as much money as possible. This is a really, really chill run for a team. You're probably only going to be able to get 1 load per week. Who knows? Maybe you could get more than 1 load per week. It's something you could call and ask them about. The load is not paying amazing money, and if you're only doing one load a week, that's $6,233. So 6233.08 times zero point 0.7. That's $4,363.15 per week divided by two. That's $2,181.58 per person per week. That's $2,200 per person per week. And you have all of your business expenses that still need to come out of that. So after all of your expenses, it depends on your truck payment. Your fuel costs are not going to be very high because you're not running a lot of miles. But I would guesstimate that each person would probably be making like $1,200 a week. So if you want to make about $1,200 a week as a team, $1,200 per person per week as a team, and 12 to 1,500. I mean, it just depends on your expenses for your business, and take a lot of time off, just like really casual, really chill, lot of time off, and make like 12 to 1,500 bucks a week per person. Like if you're a husband and wife couple, then it's a shared income, so that's actually really good. If you want to make $100,000 a year as a couple and take a lot of time off, not work very hard, have a dedicated run, then man, that's a run. The one big negative about this run is that it's a dedicated run across some of the worst like weather roads in the country. You're driving I-80 across Wyoming. You're just driving back and forth I-80 across Wyoming constantly. And that is one of the most dangerous roads to drive on in the United States, especially in the winter. So, I mean, it's not a bad drive in the summer, but even in the summer, you can get some really crazy winter in Wyoming. You can get just really high winds. Wyoming has insanely high winds. It's not uncommon for trucks to just get blown off the road in Wyoming at any time of year. So there's a dedicated run. It's a lot easier to find a dedicated run as a team than a solo driver. Like the JQL, the Google account, I think that they have available dedicated runs for teams. They don't have anything for solo. There's a lot of the accounts at Landstar that have dedicated runs for teams. It's not very difficult to find a dedicated run as a team at Landstar, but as a solo driver to find a dedicated run, it is really hard. All right, let's just skim through here real quick. Indiana and Illinois going to Salt Lake, paying like $3.73 a mile. That's not that great. Kansas City to Delaware for $4 a mile, not that great. Edwardsville, Kansas to Miami for $3 a mile. That is horrible. Miami is really, really South Florida, and Miami is a really, really bad freight market. And $3 a mile is not a very good rate for a team. Like, this is a horrendous load. This is so bad. Laverne, Tennessee, going to Massachusetts, max weight hazmat, paying $4 a mile. Not very good. Edwardsville to Miami, $3 a mile. Laverne, Tennessee to Massachusetts, $4 a mile, max weight hazmat. Humble, Texas to Miami, Florida, 40,000 pounds of hazmat, $365 a mile. Chicago to Miami, heavy hazmat load, $320 a mile. Dallas to Miami, 30,000 pounds consumer goods, $3 a mile. These are all bad loads. Long Beach, California to El Paso, Texas, 40,000 pounds of auto parts, $514 a mile. It's only 778 miles, $4,000. That's not a great load for a team. If that were a solo load, That would be a pretty decent load. And it's 3 days. So I don't know why they're requiring a team on that load. A solo driver can easily make that. Let's see if what it has in the comments. No comments provided, but it is marked as a team load. So if you're a solo driver, you could call them and ask them like, "Hey, is the customer okay with a solo driver hauling this?" You could try to get that load. It's a good load for a solo driver. It's not a good load for a team. So yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of good team loads. This is I mean the team loads are paying better than the solo loads, but they still are not very good. Okay, let's go over to reefers. Trailer type refrigerated. And we're going to leave it on team. And there's hardly any loads showing up at all. Now, some of these loads are listed as it can be in a van or a reefer. Man, this one's just flagged for everything. Commodity type is T-Val. HM bulk. Is that hazmat bulk? I'm seeing some commodity types I haven't seen before. What's T-Val? Let's see what it is. Pharmaceuticals. T-Val is pharmaceuticals. Must be cold chain certified BCO. I've never hauled reefer, so I'm not familiar with reefer stuff. Let's see what HM bulk is. I'm guessing it's hazmat bulk. HM totes, IBC, cylinder, multiple bulk. So it's hazmat totes, cylinder, multiple bulk. And what is IBC? I don't know what IBC stands for. So most of these are just van loads that can also be hauled in reefer. So this one's an actual reefer load, Deer Park, Texas to Easley, South Carolina. It's refrigerated hazmat, 360 a mile for 917 miles. That's decent. Vandalia, Ohio to Pasadena, Texas. Refrigerated HM bulk, hazmat bulk, 423 a mile. It's decent. And then Salt Lake City to Georgia. Pharmaceuticals paying 348 a mile. These are, decent. All right. So there's almost nothing for team hazmat. Let's look at solo or team refrigerated. I'm sorry. Now let's look at solo refrigerated. Quite a few more results. All right, we got Alaska, Canada. We're just skipping over that crap. Lowell, Michigan to Sanford, Florida. Max weight hazmat, 325 a mile. That's horrible. Let's skip through here and let's find loads that are reefer only. They're not van loads that can also be hauled in reefers. So here we go. Mulberry, Arkansas to Elkton, Maryland. 38,000 pounds of packaging materials, $3 a mile. That's not that great. Grand Forks, North Dakota to Memphis, Tennessee, max weight packaging, $3 a mile. We've already looked at the South Carolina hazmat load. Beaumont, Texas to Lubbock, Texas, 630 miles for like $5 a mile. Max weight hazmat. Not that great. And a bunch of Canada loads. All right, we'll just stop right there because we're getting down to like my minimums that I set for the search results. So if you specialize in refrigerated, I would not come to Landstar. Landstar doesn't have crap for reefer freight. So let me pause this. We'll go back to my original search. All right, now we're looking at my Oklahoma City search again. And I increased the search results. I had it limited to only showing me Landstar contract freight. I don't want to see spot market loads, but I went ahead and enabled spot market loads, and there's only 2 Landstar contract loads on here. All the rest of these are spot market loads, which I hate dealing with spot market loads. And just skimming through here, these are all bad loads. All right, let's go back and edit the search. Agent, direct shipper, yes. $250, $3,000. All right, I think we got everything set up. And that's it. We only have 2 results. Now there's 5 total loads. There are 3 of these Forney, Texas to Salt Lake City, and 2 Louisville, Texas to Raleigh, North Carolina loads. But we are approaching the end of the day. It's 4:30 p.m. Central, and these brokers tend to work bankers' hours. So we should not expect a whole lot of loads to be posted. The load board is most busy right whenever the brokers start working early in the morning. That's when it's the busiest. And then it just kind of tapers off throughout the day. And then there's a slowdown during lunchtime. But yeah, right now, these loads are depressing. Like these rates are really bad. This is no bueno. But I need to go ahead and wrap this video up because I need to start getting things prepared to go back out over the road, because I'm most likely going to get a call from trailer utilization tomorrow. It's usually a 1-day turnaround. Whenever you contact them and request a trailer, it's usually the following day that they contact you and say, hey, I've got a trailer here. And as long as it's not anything crazy, then I'll have to accept it. And who knows where I'm going to be driving to go pick up the trailer. But man, we're already at 2 hours, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the video. Freight market sucks. And I have no idea what's going to happen with the freight market. I was optimistic, but I'm no longer optimistic. Right now, I'm just uncertain. And uncertainty is bad. Uncertainty is bad for business. And that's kind of, I think, where most people are at with the economy right now. That's where most businesses are at, is there's so much going on that people are uncertain. The ceasefire ended with um, between Israel and Gaza, or Israel and Palestine, or whatever you want to call them. And immediately after the ceasefire ended, fuel prices shot up by like 10 cents a gallon. So that is something that is keeping fuel prices up right now, are the two wars that are going on. The Ukraine war and the Israel war. Those two wars are keeping fuel prices inflated because of fear of supply disruption, uncertainty. If those two wars were to end, we could potentially see fuel prices plummet. We could see fuel prices. Well, it takes the oil and gas industry time to spin up and spin down operations. And I've heard from multiple people, I mentioned this in my last video, I've heard from multiple people that the oil and gas industry is going to kick off within the next 3 to 6 months. So I expect that if these two wars end within the next 6 months, then by the end of the year, by the time we get to September, October, we could be looking at, $1.80 a gallon fuel again. And when I say $1.80 a gallon, I'm talking about like the raw fuel price after discount. So, because I don't pay attention to what the pump price is, I don't pay anything remotely close to pump price. I normally get discounts of like 50 cents to $1 a gallon. So, I think that the pump prices, whenever I was paying $1.80 a gallon for fuel, were like $2.40 a gallon at the pump. So we could see $2.40 a gallon pump prices by the end of this year if these two wars end. If we have like real ends to these two wars, and we don't have any other wars kick off, by then the fossil fuel industry should be, getting into full swing. And I think by the end of this year, we could see fuel prices plummet by another, 50, 60 cents a gallon. So that will help with our costs, but that doesn't really help with the number of loads. But that is really, really, really good for the economy. Low fuel prices are really good for the economy. So it could cause the economy to rebound. So I don't know. We're just gonna have to wait and see. There's a lot of uncertainty right now, which creates volatility. And I need to go do a whole bunch of stuff to get ready to get back out over the road. Which reminds me, I need to put in a grocery delivery order right now and get some groceries delivered tomorrow morning. Food to take out onto the truck. So, yeah, anyway, I'll wrap up the video. I hope you're doing great. And hopefully these rates increase. The economy is horrible. Mainstream media is not covering. It's not even. I don't like referring to them as mainstream media. It's state-run media. almost all of our media outlets are controlled by one of the two political parties which control our government. That is state-run media. The the two political parties which control our government also control almost all media in the country. That's state-run media. That's the same kind of crap you have in China. So it's crazy. It's crazy where our country has gone to. Um, but they're not covering how bad the economy is, and it's not just in the United States; it's around the world. Uh, China, for the last couple of years, has had a lot of stuff going on. Like it's real. The economy in China is really, really, really bad. China is known for people committing suicide because of the horrendous work conditions. They get paid next to nothing. They work ridiculous hours. They get almost no breaks, and people just snap. But on top of that, because of how bad the Chinese economy has been, there have been people that have been working for months and not getting paid. And these people are retaliating. Like you have entire factories of employees that haven't been paid for months, and they're like burning the factories down in retaliation. Like there's some crazy crap going on in China that our state-run media is not covering. Our state-run media is trying to hide how bad the economy is, um, how bad inflation is, how bad like everything is. We need some massive changes to turn the boat around. Um, I don't think we're going to be able to fix the problem with just 4 years of the Trump administration. I think that we're going to have to keep the Democrats out of power for at least 8 to 12 years to turn the boat around. And even then, we've almost gone past the point of no return with our currency, going, what is it, 30 something trillion dollars in debt? Let me pause this. We are $36.6 trillion in debt. And with everything that the Department of Government Efficiency has been doing in the like 2 months that it's existed, it's only saved us how much? This is millions, billions. Is that trillions? So that's thousands, millions. No, it's just billions. Thousands, millions, billions, trillions. So it's only saved us $219.6 billion, which that's a lot of money. But whenever you compare it to the ridiculous amount of debt we have of $36 trillion, it's just a drop in the bucket. It's hardly anything. There needs to be like massive, massive, massive changes in our government to get our government spending under control. And a lot of people don't like understand how bad it is for our government to have this out of control spending. We have a fiat currency. We have a faith-based currency. What gives our currency value is faith in the currency. Our currency's value is mainly determined, aside from faith, supply and demand. And the demand for the US dollar has been dropping for a long time. We went off the gold standard under Nixon, like 1971 or something like that. I can't remember exactly when. That dropped demand for the dollar. And that allowed us to start printing money like crazy. And two other things that created huge demand for the dollar is the world reserve currency. I think it was the Bretton Woods agreements after World War II. The major nations around the world decided to use the US dollar for world trade. That creates tremendous demand for the US dollar. Another thing is that OPEC agreed to only sell oil in US dollars. That created tremendous demand for the dollar. Those things have changed. OPEC has started selling oil and things other than the dollar. They're trying to get out of the dollar. So that is dropping demand for the dollar by a large amount by OPEC getting out of the dollar. Um, the US dollar is no longer the like world reserve currency. It's still commonly used in world trade, but countries have started using other currencies for world trade, which is causing the dollar demand to drop. And then our out of control government spending is just like massively inflating the amount of currency, the supply. So the supply of the currency is going up dramatically, and then the demand for the currency has been dropping for decades. So that's the reason that our currency is becoming worthless. And if we don't get this under control, it's going to get to a point where they're just going to have to like create a new currency. Uh, we're basically going to have to default on our debt. Now, what we'll probably end up doing is that we can print as much money as we want, so we don't technically need to default on the debt. We could just pay off everybody, and if we paid everybody off, then it would make the currency worthless. Um, and then we could create a new currency. So we wouldn't technically default on the debts, but it would be a really shady way of doing it is to just print a whole bunch of money to pay off all the debts. It's like using a credit card to pay off all your debts. You're not really getting rid of your debts. Um, just imagine the government had the ability to pay off all their debts with a credit card, and then they could just like cancel the credit card and not have to worry about paying anything on the credit card. That's the government has the ability to do stuff like that. So yeah, we're in we live in interesting times. Let's put it that way. We live in interesting times. Let's refresh this one more time, and yeah, let's wrap this up and post a video. So uh, hope you're having a good one. Freight market sucks, and I apologize if I rambled a little off. You know, if I had issues staying on topic, I'm really tired. We have been having what they're referring to as wind storms in Oklahoma for the last week. Uh, it's damaged the roof of my house. It's knocked the fence over in my backyard. There's tremendous amounts of damage all throughout Oklahoma City. If you just drive around town, there are business signs blown out, there are roofs damaged, there's fences blown over, there's trees blown over because we've had windstorms where it's like 40-mile-per-hour sustained winds with gusts of 70 plus. That like 40-mile-per-hour wind, that's wind blowing so hard that it's hard for you to stand up straight. That's wind that's like, you know, you're having to lean into it to walk, and it's not a constant steady thing. There are little like variations in the wind, so you're bouncing around, and then a 70-mile-per-hour gust, that's enough to blow you over. That could throw you to the ground. So yeah, it's incredibly crazy wind in Oklahoma for the last week or so, and it's been really dry, like 17% humidity. Like, are we having another dust bowl in these windstorms? I haven't gone outside and looked to see what it's like today. We're having a windstorm right now, but the windstorm we had on Friday, the sky was orange, and I thought it was because of all the fires we had, but it wasn't. It was dust in the air that made the sky orange. My entire house got full of dust. I still can taste dust in my mouth. It's like, are we having another dust bowl in Oklahoma? You know, we had a dust bowl during I think it was the 1930s. We might be having another dust bowl in Oklahoma where we just have a really dry climate with high winds. That would be crazy if that happened again. They blamed the last dust bowl on farmers because of the way they mismanaged the land. But that's not that can't be like the only reason that we had a dust bowl. You know, farming doesn't change weather patterns. Yes, mismanagement of land can cause erosion and stuff like that, but it doesn't cause, it not to rain and high winds. That's so we might be having another dust bowl. I don't know. It's only been a week of this, so I don't want to jump to the conclusion that, we're in another dust bowl when it's only been going on for a week. What I'm really surprised by is that I haven't seen anyone mention anywhere in the news about we might be starting up another dust bowl right now. It is abnormally dry in Oklahoma. Like we've had almost no rain in Oklahoma. It is extremely dry. And we're having these wind storms and dust storms and humidity levels that I don't think I've ever seen in Oklahoma. I don't think I've ever seen humidity in Oklahoma get down to like 17%. That is extremely abnormal for Oklahoma. Oklahoma has a fairly humid climate. It's not Florida, 90% humidity climate, but we're normally at like 50, 60% humidity is fairly common for Oklahoma. 17% humidity, that's desert level humidity. That is like really, really, really low humidity levels. And we've been at like 17% humidity throughout these windstorms for the last week or so. It's crazy. I've never seen humidity that low in Oklahoma. But anyway, let's wrap this up. Best of luck to you out there. And once I get back out over the road, hopefully we'll start making some driving footage. And I want to try to post a lot more videos than I have been. I've been going like months without posting a video, and I'm gonna try to post more videos. And I need to do a lot more research, figure out what's going on in the world, and so that I can give analysis and predictions on the freight market and the economy and all that stuff. So right now I haven't been doing enough research on it. I've been focusing on other things, but I need to get up to speed on that so that I can talk more in depth, in more detail on that stuff. So anyway, have a good one. Bye.